Hello and welcome to the Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software. I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Mitchell, our presenter, and also our Director of Customer Success. Sarah is here to give you a demo of Alpha Anywhere as always, but we're also here to answer your questions. And you could type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, and I can see your screen.
Awesome, awesome.
Very summery. For
Yes.
those of us on this hemisphere.
For those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, it is summer.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm gonna admit that I am jealous of people who are having winter right now.
Summer's not your season. It's all right.
No, I've got the reverse stats. Anyway, today we're going to talk about microinteractions. This is something that we voted on the webinar poll a couple weeks ago, and we put it up in there. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about that. But before we do that, just a quick update on the webinar schedule. Next week, we have our release overview of what's coming up in the new Alpha Anywhere release. And then on the 20th, Dion will be doing a deep dive on some features that he has cherry-picked from those that are going to be out. So you'll definitely want to attend that to learn some of the new things in more depth and how you could leverage them in your own applications. After that, we'll be doing our first building custom web themes. And then because custom web themes is going to take more than 2 sessions to cover, I am going to intersperse it with other topics. This is a decision I made about 10 minutes ago. So that's why it says TBD right there. And just quick screen check. Can you see my screen? Is it updating?
It is. It's,
okay.
Well, I'm looking at the webinar schedule, so if
okay,
that's what I should be
perfect.
seeing, then it's good. All right, cool.
Yeah, all right, fantastic. Yeah, I didn't want to make that mistake I made last week before I move on. Anyway, this is the schedule coming up. July is actually gonna, come and go pretty fast, as most months seem to do during the summer, as we all have vacations and stuff like that. So anyway, stay tuned for these upcoming webinars, and hopefully you can be there. If you can't be there, you can watch the recording on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. And then again, DevCon is coming up October 18th to the 22nd. That is not that many months away, is it, Dave? I'll catch you off guard.
Wait, where's the mute button? Boy, it sure is in October. Yeah, it's
yeah,
coming
it's
right
not
up.
that far away. It's coming right up.
4 months-ish, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to me, it seems even sooner because we've been doing so much planning on it recently.
Oh yeah, I mean, for us, DevCon is here now because we need to start putting our presentations together.
Well, we have already a lot of good stuff collected.
We do.
So
yep.
Gonna be happy.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that everyone can join us. Those sessions will be recorded, so even if you can't attend the sessions live, if you're in another time zone, you can certainly watch them after the content's been presented. We try to get those out during DevCon like immediately. We try to upload those recorded sessions by the end of the day, ideally. But if we can't get them by the end of the day, usually by the next day, everything that we did the day before is available to attendees. So register. It's going to be a ton of fun, and I hope to see you there. So today we're talking about microinteractions, and for a lot of you, this is maybe a new term, but I guarantee you all of you have experience working with creating and using microinteractions on a daily basis. And a microinteraction, and it's a very basic description of it, is any very small scale interaction between a user and an app. So mousing over a link and how that link might then display an underline to indicate that it's clickable, that's a microinteraction. The little notification badge on your email app, that's a microinteraction, sort of indicating to you that something's going on. The dinging noise that Google will make when you say "Okay, Google" to indicate that it's listening to you. That sound is a microinteraction. And I feel like Vamsi Bachu kind of provides a very good description of microinteractions. Why I've quoted him verbatim here. I think it's a he, it might be a she. They say microinteractions are events which have one main task, a single purpose, and they're found all over your device and within apps. Their purpose is to delight the user, to create a moment that is engaging, welcoming, and dare we say it, human. So, in a nutshell, microinteractions are things you can add to your app to make it more engaging and more fun to use. And microinteractions can do a lot of things. They can be fun. They can be, just down to business, but I just wanted to provide a few examples here. So ways you can use microinteractions. You can improve navigation. You can create animations that draw attention to the thing that the user is tapped on, or, make it more of an enjoyable experience, draw their attention. You can be used to provide tips. Here we have a password reset picture. And then over here, we've got this pop-up that's just indicating to the user, this is what you can do. And this text highlighting here, the green lowercase letters A to Z, that indicates something they've done right. But these other two things, they haven't done yet. So as they're typing out this password, that text may update from its white default format to a green color to indicate that they have completed that requirement. And this is done in advance while they're entering their new password, not after they've decided, type it in the new password and the reset password, and then you click save, and then you tell them they've done it wrong. By providing this interaction up front while they're creating it, you sort of eliminate that sort of harsh, abrupt interruption in the password create process, and instead guide them through the process to make sure they get it right the first time. Microinteractions can be used to indicate if something is interactive or to draw attention to something that you want the user to engage with. Notifications are a big one on apps on your mobile device. Those little icons indicating that you've got a message, or even the sound, and then a message in your notifications on your phone. Those things sort of indicate that something needs to be done, something needs their attention. And then certainly if you've built an app where the user interface isn't strictly buttons and links, microinteractions could be used to indicate that they can interact with something that typically isn't something you could click on or tap or slide. And then another thing they do is they just encourage engagement. This is a very, very blurry photo of a chatbot pop-up, but it's a type of little thing on your site that prompts the user to engage with your website or with your application or with whatever it is that you've built. So as you're building your apps, thinking about how to draw in the user, how to make that user experience more enjoyable through the addition of microinteractions can really go a long way in drawing your users into the application experience. So a few places where you could take advantage of these, even though we've just seen some examples, I just want to reiterate a few more examples here. Adjusting a setting. When you tap, a switch, a sliding control, rather than just have it, change color, maybe you want to animate it in some way, or perhaps tapping that then triggers another item to, be enabled or disabled. Or in the case of, if I don't know if you've ever played with settings in your mobile device, I know on the iPhone, and I assume Android has this as well, there's a dark mode setting. And when you tap that setting, when you adjust it, the phone immediately transitions into dark mode or into light mode, depending on how you're changing that. So while you're adjusting that setting, providing that just that little visual animation effect is a good place to engage the user with these things. Alerting them to when they need something, putting a badge on an icon or a button that indicates that they've got something needs their attention, or maybe they've got messages to read. That's the place where you can use them. Again, turning something on and off, using a switch instead of a checkbox can provide that added animation to create it more engaging. Indicating something's interactive. And then creating flow. And this one, it may not be one that you think about, but in the case of like the panels, panel cards, panel navigators, as you transition between panels, especially if you've chosen to use the carousel mode and have either provided buttons the users can tap to go between the current panel and the next one, or by using the swipe gesture to to tap and drag it across the screen to the next one, to the next panel. The animation, the transition of those panels sliding across the screen, that's creating flow. That's a micro interaction, sort of drawing the user in and telling them a story about where they're going and where they came from. So we kind of mentioned this. Animations are huge in micro interactions. It's the ones that you're going to see most often out there. Bouncing buttons, or as someone navigates through something, maybe the selected control transitions using an animation effect through CSS. But you also have hover effects. When you hover a mouse over a link, it will it might have an underline. The mouse cursor may change to be a pointer instead of the hand pointer instead of the default triangle, and other things like providing like a different color, changing the color or something when you've hovered over it. And then another one is sound. Sound can help draw attention to something else in the system, especially if you use sound in various distinct ways, such as to alert that someone has a message. And I feel like the best way to talk about microinteractions, where you can find them, how you can add them, the types that we have in Alpha Anywhere, is to just go and dig into the product and just explore it. So I have a live demo of a few things I've built in advance because that's the best way to do a demo. And just talk about where you find things, how you can integrate them. So with this demo, I've got 3 things in it. I've got a button that displays a badge icon and show you how to set that up. I've got the new radio button as a JavaScript control, which is like a spoiler for the next release, and how to add a hover effect on those icons so that people can see where it is that they're about to click. And this third one is it's a button that plays an animation when somebody submits something, and then that animation displays like a wait mode, basically, until the submit returns back from the server. So we'll just let's do full preview on this. So this first one, this is a button, and every button in Alpha Anywhere can have a badge icon, and that badge icon can contain numbers, but you could also just put regular text in it. And the way this demo is set up is when you click this button, it displays that little badge icon, and that's the system default, and then after about 2,000 milliseconds, it disappears. So we'll click that again, and now it's gone. So that is that little icon right there that you can add there. It can stay static. You can remove it. I chose to remove it with a timeout. But that's an example of something you could integrate into your apps if you have something. If you've built something that includes like messaging or tasks, or this could be like new tasks waiting for you. You're out doing work and you're using this app to fill out forms and stuff, and the office sends you a new form or site you need to go check on. You pop up a little notification on the sites you need to visit button, indicating that they need to look at it because they've got a new task. They look at it, they check it out, you clear it out, and with that you've communicated something to the user without them needing to talk to somebody, receiving a text message, whatever. So that's a really subtle way to add in sort of a indicator. This one here, this is a basic radio button control. It's got Sunday through Saturday, the days of the week, populated from a predefined list that we have in the system. And this is actually set up and configured as a JavaScript control, which is new, coming in the next release. And the thing that was added here is as you mouse over it, this little highlight around the button appears. indicating to you what's going to be selected. And then once we select it, mouse off of it. This isn't going to work in a touch environment, but if you've got a, mouse and keyboard setup, want to provide some sort of like additional visual indication of what someone has selected, this is a great way to do it with radio buttons. You could put a border around it. You could change the color of the icon shown because these are SVG icons. You could even go as far as to figure out how to integrate keyframes and bounce animations as things are moused over to really draw in the user. And then this third one is a submit button. Before I show that to you, I do want to show you the website where I got it from and give this person full credit because it's pretty spectacular. This implementation, I removed the confetti, but basically it's clicks and then success once it's done. And I'm going to put this link in the chat so you guys can go check that out if you're interested in it. I also want to share, this is the website where I figured out how to do the radio button hover. Except all cookies. This is actually just somebody posted up on Stack Overflow. They wanted a radio button hover animation and they couldn't figure out how to do it. And then this person notified them like, you need to put your transition here. I then took this and adapted it specifically for that radio button. But this one, the submit button, I removed the confetti. The confetti was a lot of stuff and I didn't like it that much. But what this does is it's more than just animating a button after I click on it. It actually makes a callback to the server using the dialog submit. And then in the onDialog validate event on the server, it does a sleep for a few seconds before it sends the JavaScript back to then play the success animation. And in addition to that, I turned the buttons look, that dark blue part, the rounded corners, into a sub theme, where I also added all the keyframe animations that came with that example. So we'll go ahead and quickly click on that. If we come down here, this is what it looks like. It doesn't look like much because there's no text color on these guys. But in terms of the implementation itself, the click event calls click button, which is a JavaScript function that I modified from the original. We come over here. We'll look for click button. So here's click button. It gets a pointer to our demo button control. That's what this is, because it's going to add a class and remove a class, and then it calls dialog submit. And dialog submit is a JavaScript function you call on the UX component object, but it triggers some server-side events that you can hook, including this after dialog validate. So after dialog validate gets called as part of that sequence of submitting data to the server. It also calls dialog validate, then after validate is after the dialog validate has run. But in here, you can do stuff. You can insert action scripting to save submitted data to tables if you have not. No, if you're using something like data binding, that's what you can do here. But you can do other things like run server-side workflows, or generate a report and send it back. But all this does here is it calls sleep, which is the next basic function, to sleep for 5 seconds, and then it returns this JavaScript. This calls the reset submit button. And if we go back into our JavaScript functions, this is what reset submit button does. It gets the button again, and then it removes the or it adds complete and it removes that loading icon. And then after about 4,000 milliseconds, it changes it to the submit button. And if you notice up here, there's this variable called disabled. That is just simply done to prevent people from running through this workflow twice. So I know that in the past, and maybe some of you still experience to this day, somebody clicks the submit button on your app and there's maybe some visual indication that it's doing something, maybe it goes gray. This is a way that you can kind of integrate an animated effect, a micro interaction that indicates to the user something is happening and they just need to wait for it to finish. And then that playing that animation at the end of it being successful indicates to them that it's complete. Or if it fails, maybe you change that animation to something like, oops, something went wrong. And then you provide a little drop-down pop-up that says, we couldn't save your data. You forgot to, input your email address or something, or this email address is invalid. Something about it is wrong. That's an alternative you can use. So beyond the, using what we have built in, the button badges are done through the button appearance setting here. Just sort of hop around here on the badge demo. So if you turn on show badge in the button appearance, you get access to the badge settings. And in here is where you can do things like specify the class or inline styles applied to that badge icon that's shown. You can specify where it's positioned, vertically and horizontally. How is it relative to the edge of the control? If it is, then it appears inside the button instead of outside, or it appears outside the button. I forget. Anyway, offset can be a positive or negative value of where you want to anchor that. The text to display in the badge. And then this is minimum number. It assumes that your badge is going to be a number, but I believe you can also insert text in there if you want. And then down here at the bottom, there's this how to set the badge programmatically. For the purposes of today's demo, I copied this. And then in this click event, I pasted it. I deleted a bunch of stuff after the set badge false thing. And I modified it. I kept the default getting the control, setting the badge location, and setting the badge value. But then I wrapped set badge false, which hides the badge inside of a set timeout. And if you've never seen this syntax before, right here, it's just an anonymous function in JavaScript. It's the equivalent of writing like function and then open close paren, I think, before entering the body. But this is just calls that after waiting about 2,500 seconds or milliseconds. And the radio button is a JavaScript control. And really the only thing that's special about this is I set up a custom icon type to pick the two SVG icons I wanted, and then applied some classes. I applied the animated radio class, which comes from that Stack Overflow article that I gave you guys the link to, modified slightly. And then I also created this align buttons thing just so that I could get the icon and the text label of each choice to align vertically. And if I just click here, go and edit local CSS. This is what I did to add that hover effect. So we have animated radio and then SVG hover and then also SVG. That's where the transition was added. And then align buttons div. All of the button icons are wrapped in a div control, and there's only one div control within each one of those choices. So I use this selector of the class name buttons and then the all divs basically. But I say vertical align middle, which aligns that button circle. Let's go to full preview here with the text of the choice. So go here. So see how Sunday is kind of centered with the button. If we open up the Chrome debugger, and you can't see it, but I selected this tool so I could quickly click into this layout here. So this is that align buttons class, and this is the div. And this is that rule that's been applied. If I take that off, see how everything gets taller? The bottom of this icon is kind of aligning with the middle of the word Sunday. So I added that just to tweak it a bit. But that's how that works. Everything else I've relied on the smartness of other people to figure out for me. But the micro interactions available to you in Alpha Anywhere, it goes beyond that. You can put animations on a lot of things. One example is this tab band, so, or this navigator control, if we go back to carousel, or sorry, not carousel, let's leave it on tab band. If tab band is selected, you get this animation option, and right now it's on fade. So as you click on each one of those tabs, the next tab is going to fade into view. You see how the button and the radio buttons kind of fade in and out of existence. You can do a lot with animations. We have a bunch in here. I believe it defaults to slide. So if you look at that one, we'll see what it looks like. Slide doesn't really make too much sense, in my opinion, when you're navigating between tabs, because it slides in from the right or slides back to the left. So if you had this, if instead of using tabs, you were using buttons, or in the, let's see if we can get tab buttons here. Let's insert a header, no control bar. Inside the panel header, I'm going to add 2 buttons using add control. We'll do previous. We'll take off the new line so these both appear at the same time or on the same line. We'll add another button. Next. And I'm just going to take that off for no reason, and then come over here and configure our tab buttons. Add button controller. We want button 3. Oh, we don't want that. Forget it. Cancel. Has previous card button. There we go. We want button 3 for that, and has next card button. Button 4. And I'm just going to click on these to verify button 3 and button 4. Next. So this slide and then go previous. That makes more sense to do a sliding left and right. So that's talking about flow, you know, indicating where you're going, where you're coming from. Something that you'll see us do a lot when we do demos is we'll do a list and we'll have a detail view. When you click on a list row, the detail view slides into view from the right, because English is a left to right language. As we, you know, read down the page, the next place you go is to the right. So that makes sense as you're, like, you know, turning pages in a book or something. Since I mentioned the list, I do want to add another panel here. Let's add a panel card after the current panel card end, and we'll put in a list. There we go. We'll just take the defaults for now. I will have it fill container. And then let's go in here and let's do a Kanban list. Sales pipeline for Kanban. Okay. Come down here. Let's make this a Kanban layout. Category field is category. Order field is item order. Default category names, get category names from data. We always like to add lost to this. And then prospect, qualified, proposal, closed, lost is the order they should appear in. And we will sort by company. And that's just the sort of the items in each one of those categories. This all makes sense when I show you guys when we're done. And then we're going to have a move icon. And I'm gonna keep the rest of this. Click OK, and then we'll go over to the layout and we'll just pick one of our default layouts. So we'll go to predefined templates. And let's pick this guy. And in here we'll do company and a BR and amount. Click OK. So next. Get over to our Kanban demo. So the reason I want to show you this is that this is an example of a place where we've built in a micro interaction for you to help communicate something that otherwise would be arguably possibly difficult to try to figure out how to add in, especially if you don't have any experience building or working with CSS or animations in CSS for that matter. But what we've done here is if you can click, we have this option where you can click and drag items between categories in a Kanban layout. And this also applies just to lists in general. We have an option to add in the ability to click and drag items in a list control. But as you click and you drag this around, you notice that the place where it's going to go slides into view. And that's done intentionally, because without that, you're not going to know when you place this here, are you going to go above this? How far up do you need to be before that's going to pop into that section? So by providing that visual indicator, that micro interaction, you can tell where your data is going to show up when you let go of that mouse cursor. Same if you tap and drag it. So if I tap it, let's see if I can tap it. I don't think I can tap it. I think it's an issue with my computer. Anyway, there we go. That is an example of something we built in. With the list itself, if we come back in here into the list properties, we have a few other options you might want to consider looking into. We have pull to refresh behavior, which is something you might use on websites where you can just tap and drag the list down, and then it does a callback to refresh the data. Another one that we include is there's a side to side, I think it's this one. Drag row settings. I'm going to pull up the doc page on this because I don't remember completely how to set it up. Annotation. We'll pull this up real quick. What do we call that? Row side to side. Here we go. So this is what row side to side drag behavior lets you do. So if as you tap it and then you start to move it, it starts to indicate to you that you can actually do something because something comes into view. So that animation as you're moving, versus like having to swipe and hope something happens, that's a micro interaction added to just convey that information. So you can put that in the chat for you guys to investigate that more on your own. These are little things you can add either by turning them on or just taking advantage of what we already have built into the control itself. But you're not limited to what we have in here, which is why I have this example of the submit message, which if you want to look at the rest of it, we can dig into that slightly. All I really did was copy the majority of the CSS and JavaScript into this layout, and then also set up the button text, to contain what was in that example for the success messages. It also includes the icons that were included in there. So in conclusion, microinteractions, something you can think about as you're building your apps. You're getting a lot of them already automatically, especially if you use the pulse effect with the alpha theme. The pulse effect simply adds a little animation when you click on something, indicating that you clicked on it. But there's a bunch of other things in there that you're already using or could be using to add in and really draw on the user's experience and make it better. So with that, I'd like to open up for questions.
Excellent. Earlier in your presentation, you showed a series of radio buttons that associated with days of the week. And on it, you had kind of a cool hover over effect.
Mhm.
Someone wrote in with a question saying, can you do the same thing with checkboxes?
Yes.
And can you show us?
Yeah. We'll make this a checkbox. It's gonna look a bit funky because it's a round animation. We'll do static choices. I'll again use the days. Actually, hold on. Before we do this, let's make this radio button again. You know, I'm gonna close. No, I don't want to save. I will rewatch the video to recreate what I did. Demo something. Let's add a checkbox. The only difference between the checkbox and the radio button is really the can you have more than one option selected. So let's grab our days of the week. Okay, and convert this into a JavaScript control, and then go to settings. And my class name, I'm gonna put in align buttons again because I know I'm gonna run into this with the checkbox. Change this to custom for the icon type, and I'm gonna change my class name to animated radio. And these are squares, but you know we could make them circles. Let's pick a different one here. Circle unchecked, and I'll make that resizable. Okay, and then this guy, just a rendering glitch there. I think it's because my computer is starting to run out of memory. Let's make this one not filled in, and also convert this to icon sizable. So what I did here is I added that class that I already created from a radio button. And just put it in the checkbox, and I'm going to put this in another panel card. And center it. So there's our checkbox. I think why it looks weird is that I set the unchecked value to be the checked icon and the checked value to be the empty circle. But you can see that same little animation is there. Let's go reverse that real quick and make this a vertical layout. Yep, I did. This always messes me up. It's the checked state is the first option you pick, and the unchecked state is the second option you pick. There we go. So that's circle, and this is check circle border for on. Click OK, go back to live preview, and then we'll see that. And I apologize if my audio has gotten really, really bad.
No, it's fine still.
Oh, is it? Because I just got a whole bunch of alerts from GoToWebinar that my connection is not good. So there you go. There's that same highlight. Yeah, you can do that.
And it's got the hover effect on it as well.
Yep.
Cool.
The gotcha with this one is that you need to have the JavaScript control feature, which is not available in the current stable release 80.99, but it will be available in the next update.
Yeah, very soon. Just one last question. Could you post that Stack Overflow link again in the chat window?
Did they not?
I think they logged in late, so maybe it just didn't appear for them.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could do that one more time.
There's the hover animation. If they were late, then they also missed out on the confetti button click.
Oh, for sure.
That I modified. Got rid of the confetti.
Exactly.
Yeah, this one, doing something like this is a little more involved, but once you have it implemented, you can do things that, Dion discussed when he showed how to, create controls. You can come in here and you can actually save this as a control in your library. So like, animated submit. you know, local global project. I'll just put it here, local for now, and then that's going to become available down here in your defined controls
Right.
eventually.
So you set it up once and you can keep reusing them.
Yep. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
or maybe, no, you insert it from here, animated submit.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Well, that looks like it for questions today. So Sarah, thanks very much. This is a really interesting session. If people have more questions, go ahead and send them in to guides, GUIDES at alphasoftware.com, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We will hopefully see you at our next Wednesday webinar. Until then, take care and stay well. Bye-bye.